Hey everybody, it's Mahoney coming to you with another Tuesday tip. So this whole thing that I do, suing for money when somebody has been negligent, what we call a civil lawsuit. What is this? Where did this come from? Well, first of all, let's understand that there's two different types of law. There's criminal law and there's civil law. Criminal law is when you commit a crime against a victim, which usually is in violation of a state statute or a federal statute. That is prosecuted by either the state, if you violated a state statute, or by the United States government if you violated a federal statute. And if you're found guilty of that, then the outcome is that your freedom is taken away, that you go to prison or you're put on probation, something along those lines, and you have to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. What I deal with now is what's called a civil suit. A civil suit is an individual versus an individual. And an individual can be a person, as in a human, or it can be a partnership, or it can be a corporation. And if one person is negligent, violates a duty against another person, then they can be held responsible for damages. Well, where did that come from? Well, the 7th Amendment of the United States Constitution reads as follows. In suits at common law where the value in controversy shall not exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So this is considered one of the most basic of the Bill of Rights. The 7th Amendment, remember the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. We passed the Constitution first, then we passed the Bill of Rights. There was a big debate as to whether or not to put this into the Constitution, but they decided to leave it to the Bill of Rights because the Constitution had to be agreed on by everybody. And there was a little bit of controversy about having the civil jury trial. So where does this come from? No other country does it. Other countries do not have civil jury trials where it's one person against another for money damages for violation of a duty. That doesn't exist. We got it from England, and actually the civil jury trial has been around in England longer than jury trials in criminal cases. And the reason that it came about was because in case there was a law or in case there was an issue, the idea of having people off the street, not educated in law, decide those issues was considered a very good idea as a balance of power. So if a law was passed that didn't make sense, the jury had the ability to get rid of that. If there was a contract that was something that didn't make sense, the jury had the ability to get rid of it. Well, the United States, before we were our own independent, followed that same suit. And when we were trying to break free of Britain, jury nullification was a great way for us to do that. Juries were able to say, this tax doesn't make sense. We don't think that it should be imposed. These contracts that we have with the king are too significant, and so therefore those aren't going to be enforced. And it became a huge part of us breaking free from Great Britain. So that's why they wanted it originally in the Constitution. The Federalists at the Constitutional Convention debated that because by the time the Constitutional Convention had come around, juries were setting aside contracts, they were setting aside other things involving government and certain laws. So they were a little uneasy about putting it in the basic Constitution, but they did put it in the Bill of Rights. So it only applies with the Bill of Rights. It only applies to the federal courts. This is one of the Bill of Rights that didn't come through the state courts through the 14th Amendment. But pretty much every state has it. And the reason that we have it is because the founding fathers knew that accountability created responsibility. And if somebody owes you a duty, whatever that duty is, which is determined by a jury, if they violate that duty and if it causes damages, then they owe you compensation for those damages. And why do we do that? Because it's going to deter future conduct. So if an organization doesn't take the responsibilities that it should, so like let's say it doesn't plow its own sidewalk and doesn't salt its own sidewalk and people are falling out in front of it and they're being injured. And then a jury comes back and says, hey, you should do that. That's a violation of your duty and we're going to make you pay for the damages that were caused to those individuals. Well, now the particular business is going to, they're going to do that correctly and they're going to make sure that they get rid of the snow and they're going to make sure they put salt down. Juries are also allowed to say that a law shouldn't be enforced. That's called jury nullification, and juries have the authority to do that. So it's a way for the people off the street to determine what the duty should be and what the law should be in each particular case. And because it's region by region, the application of duties can vary. So what a duty is in Northern Illinois might be different from what a duty is in Houston, Texas, which might be different from what a duty is in Sacramento, California. So comes from the Constitution, 7th Amendment. It's never been modified. It still is there for $20 if it's $20 in controversy. And the second part of that amendment to the Constitution talks about judges not setting that aside, which is something that became significantly popular back in the 80s and the 90s when juries would come in with big verdicts on cases that judges would set them aside. And part of this whole provision was that judges don't do that. Judges elected, judges appointed by the state, judges appointed by the president aren't supposed to do that. Juries are supposed to be the one that decide what is a reasonable responsibility and what is accountability. So that's where the whole system comes from. We're one of the few countries that has it. It's a good thing that we do have it because accountability does create responsibility. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.